The thing that I think a lot of people miss is understanding what sacrifice is. Like something that it was helpful for me to realize was, in the New Testament, they don't explain how sacrifice works because everyone reading the New Testament in its original context came from either a Jewish or pagan background that had a very similar conception of sacrifice. So we hear sacrifice and we think of just the killing of an animal or the death of Christ. But that's not it. That's not accurate. Like you kill the Passover lamb on preparation day on the 14th day of the month of Nisan, but that's not enough. Maybe it sounds bad. It's not like there's anything wrong with the blood of the lamb there, but that's not the end of it. So the example I'd give is like, let's say you're a kid in a family. You're of the age of reason. Let's say you're a 13-year-old kid. And your family is poor and does not own the Passover lamb under, Jewish law. You could share the Passover with another family if you couldn't afford your own lamb. How are you covered by the death of the lamb? Well, you didn't raise the lamb. You don't own the lamb. You're not slaughtering the lamb. Well, the answer is very explicit. The blood is smeared on the doorpost, and then you eat the lamb. Like maybe you don't even smear the blood on the doorpost, but you participate in the sacrifice. You become a partaker by eating. And again, 1 Corinthians 10, St. Paul explicitly says this is how we become partakers in the altar in Judaism. And he also describes how the Eucharist is a participation, a partaking in the body and blood of Christ, which means we are receiving Christ's body and blood through eating, which makes total sense from a sacrificial context. And notice, this is not a second sacrifice. This is not re-sacrificing the lamb. The lamb isn't like double dead. It's still just as dead as it was. It's a participation in the sacrifice that's already, in one sense, been accomplished. In another sense, still needs to be applied. And so once you get that, then it's like, okay, this tells me a couple things. Because the other thing to add is sacrifice requires this other thing, an offertory aspect. Like you couldn't just, you leave the pen open and one of the lambs gets out and gets run over. And then say, that's the one I sacrificed to God. That's not acceptable. That's actually exactly the kind of thing that Malachi 1 is condemning, of offering like bad sacrifices. So the offertory aspect, there's a laying down of Christ's life that he does at the Last Supper when he offers his body and blood and then freely goes to the cross. And what penal substitution seems, again, as an outsider, to be missing is Christ is the victim, but it's not clear that he's the priest. And Christ is explicitly the priest. In John 10, he says, no one takes my life from me. I lay it down freely. And for this reason, the Father loves me. Not the Father pours out his wrath on me. The Father is pleased with the sacrifice. In the sacrificial offerings in Judaism and even in paganism, there was no sense of God or the gods being mad.